Hello and welcome to episode 7, the magnificent 7 of the Western Bulldogs podcast, Berkeley Street, brought to you by a couple of dogs, but our friends at Mercedes-Benz Vans. And Marcus, it's great to see you. Great to hear your voice as usual. Can you believe it's episode 7 already? Is that just me? Is that snuck up?
Yeah, it has. It definitely has. And, they do say time flies when you're having fun, mate. So I definitely agree with that. And how are you going, mate? Going well?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah. Time is kind of a bit of an unusual sort of phenomenon at the moment. But so,
it
feels like there's a
There's
bit of
no
optimism.
days.
No, there's no days. No, there's no days.
Yeah.
But it
It's
does
just
feel
today
like
and tomorrow at this point.
that's it. Live in the moment, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, how are you generally? Like you're holding up all right?
Good, mate. Good. I certainly feel, and I think you were sort of going to touch on it before I spoke over you with regard to there's a feeling of optimism sort of and a sense, I think, in the air that from a footy perspective, we're making some ground, hopefully on a return, just to training initially, and obviously a return to play. So there's clearly a number of conversations being had at all different levels, but it certainly helps from a training and a motivation perspective, knowing that we're getting closer, I think, and for a couple of weeks in the middle.
The sense that the hubs is probably not going to happen, and it'll be a fly in, fly out.
I think so. I mean, ultimately, I'm just going on feel. We don't know just yet as a club or from an AFL perspective, but based on what I can gather from the conversations that are happening, and particularly how we're going as a nation, like we're doing incredibly well by the sounds of things with our ability to isolate and obviously social distance. So that's obviously gone a long way in us being able to sort of have these conversations and then hopefully be back sooner rather than later. But like I said, it's going to be helpful for everyone to potentially be able to catch up with others a bit sooner and then clearly get back to a bit of normality. But being able to play some football would be good for sure.
We had so much fun last week with Dog Tails, with your goal of the year that wasn't goal of the year.
Wasn't. Wasn't.
Wasn't
Well. Do
you know what beat you for it? What was goal of the year?
I remember quite vividly actually. It was. I'm pretty sure it was a Matt White goal. He was playing for. It might have been Port Adelaide at the time. I can't remember. It might have been Richmond. But he pretty much ran length of field from back 50 to forward 50, taking about 8 bounces and then slotted a goal. But
been done. Sorry, Matty.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
Been done. You were lucky.
So,
but we did have a lot of fun
time.
doing it last week. We did have a lot of fun doing it last week, and we kind of got the ball rolling of okay, what other dog tails could we do? And and there's so many to pick from, but it is the we live in the times at the moment of on this day or 12 months ago or but the round 5 2015 win against the Swans popped up in the Sphere last week, and I think there was an article on the website and a bit of video, and I think the game was sort of replayed somewhere over the last few days, and I thought we could revisit that and get your thoughts on it. But I think we probably need to set up the context of the game and part of the season. So we know what happened in the off season of 2014. Then Luke Beveridge comes on as coach, and the first four games, we win the first 3 of 4. So we got beaten by the Hawks in Tassie. But we'd started pretty hot.
We were moving.
We
were moving for sure.
And we'd beaten the Crows the week before. We had like a dominant win against the Crows that kind of shocked a lot of people, but we completely obliterated them. And we hadn't beaten the Swans at the CG for a while. Someone will be able to tell me how long, but it seemed like a long time since we'd beaten them up there. They were the Swans. That was a really strong Swans team. Franklin,
Hardened.
Kennedy, Parker, Hanbury. I mean, Hanbury got the 3 Brownlow votes this day. He was incredible. Like it was Swans at their kind of one of their strongest periods. And there was an interesting night before at the hotel. If you can, do you remember what the theme was going into this game?
I don't, mate, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
I do. So it was one of Bevo's best, but it's centered around revolutions in history.
Yes. Yep.
And so he was sort of painting the picture of, and he went as far back as Roman times and all these famous revolutions and what that entails. And he asked the group someone to define revolution. Do you remember who put their hand up and gave a definition?
I don't know. Who was it?
I do. It was Tom Boyd.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And he defined a revolution as a shift in power from one group to another, which was.
He was always great for definitions, Boyd. He's a very smart man, and that time he impressed us. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay. So that was so that was the theme for the day. I remember it being written on the whiteboard, big capital letters, revolution. Which is a big theme to sort of play. It's a big card to play, revolution.
Yeah.
The obvious question is, what if you lose? What if you lose bad?
Yeah.
But so the game itself, it was wet, slippery, tough, contested. The Bulldogs had 93 tackles that day. The Swans had 108, like massive tackle numbers. I kind of described the game. It was like two boxers having one of their legs tied to the other.
Yeah.
You couldn't get too far away. There was not much space.
Oh, it had all the makings for one of those games, those sort of memory book games, I reckon. And when you talk about the build up with regard to our confidence, I think being relatively high off the back of a couple of good wins, and then Bevo's always been incredibly good for those themes, and he's obviously timed this one pretty well. So there was a sense of belief as well that was building, I think, within our football club at that point in time. So it seemed like the timing was right for that game to sort of come up for us a little bit.
Do you remember much about the game up until the sort of end itself?
Well, even watching bits and pieces, like just through the socials of it back, I was still sort of in the early stages of my second year. So I'd still sort of had a fair bit to go from a development point as a footballer, and was still quite not as strong as I probably am today, clearly, but just in that type of game, that was probably one of the most exhausting games I can remember from those early stages. Like, you always remember that one. I think that the first time that you go, wow, like this is the league, like you're feeling the full brunt of what the AFL is. And for me, it was that one, because I was at times matched up against Josh Kennedy, who's he's an ox. Like he's as hardened as they come. Luke Parker, who was young but still as strong as. And there was a number of other sort of those. The Sydney teams, they feel like they've always been like that. They're just hard, and we had to, as a young group, still find a way to match them, and then still be able to utilize, some of our flair and ability to run and speed. But the conditions clearly then brought us all down to square, which the rain does tend to do at times.
I think that's a good point about the Swans, and internally at our footy club, we celebrate this game quite a lot. It's a real sense of pride for all of us who are, involved at the footy club at the time, and for, our supporters. But I think needs to be pointed out that the reason it's probably held in such high regard is because of the respect we have for Sydney and their, the Bloods culture to beat them up there in the wet was, it's a tip of the hat to the Swans as much as it is to our own pride. So I just think that's a point worth making. What we're going to do, I mean, we could have watched the whole. I would love to just watch the whole game again, because it was just one of those arm wrestle struggles. Goals were scored, but it was just brutal. It was like a bit of a street fight. But we are going to watch just the last 35 seconds and just kind of just pick out some little moments, because it's pretty intense, pretty full on. So why don't we have a look at it, and then just pick out a few little few little moments and see what we come back with.
Yeah.
Well, everyone is converging on this throw-in. The Western Bulldogs hanging on. The Swans, in one big move, could still steal the game.
This has been an amazing effort.
Stringer,
what a
back
battle.
to the square. We're down to 22 seconds. Swans have to win it. They can't make any mistakes from here. It's possible.
What a kick.
It is possible now. McVeigh, 13 seconds.
Just a foot race.
Oh, it's on. Chase. Chase for your life as hard as you can. The flashpoint 5 seconds out. They'll hang on, the Dogs. They are going to hang on. Mark this date down, Western Bulldogs fans. Saturday, May the 2nd, 2015. This club. Oh, this is just amazing. Look at these scenes.
You'd be like me in the sense that, every time you watch something back like that, especially that you've been a part of, did you get the little goosebumps and the sort of hairs stand up?
It takes you straight back. But so at the start of the clip, I was going to ask you, because as soon as it starts, I remember being as physically exhausted as I've ever been in the game of footy. Everyone was running on fumes.
Yeah. For those out there, obviously within, football clubs, we look at a lot of vision, whether it's before playing teams, but obviously we review games sort of every week. And everyone's initial instinct, it's human nature, is to look at themselves and just go, right, what have I done here? Have I stuffed up? You're straight away going, what sort of, feedback am I going to get here? And I basically did that the first time. I can look at myself, not jogging, trudging. That's what I call it. I'm trudging like my not broken, but very heavy limbed body into that stoppage in the back 50. And I'm spectating. I'm just watching myself. I'm like, would you do something and get in there? And I'm literally, I think I'm that exhausted that I'm just sort of watching it unfold. And obviously the play unfolds. It sort of bobbles around in the wet. Pico manages to get a handball over his head, it looks like, out to Jake and kick it forward. And then all of a sudden it goes that way and then just rips back. And the one thing we're pretty lucky is we've got, yourself at the time with really good leg speed. JJ's got incredible leg speed. Woody's, got great leg speed, come from a family of athletes, essentially. So we were really fortunate that we had a couple of really strong runners, and clearly Boydie managed to follow his way in as well at that point in time. And we're fortunate we had that mix of players around the ball at the time. But I think you've got a couple of moments that you wanted to sort of touch on that you've looked at. Is that right, mate?
So I think, just before that footage is that Nathan Robat sort of got the ball on the wing and really clever kick and kicks it long and out of bounds. And that was the first moment where I thought I had that little surge of, I think we'll win. Up until then, it was just like, how could you tell this is just like going back? It was just like a game of pinball. It was just sort of going around. But it was such a clever kick, and thought there couldn't be long left. Things would really have to fall apart. There has to be a moment of, freakish brilliance for them to get out of this sort of corner trap.
Yeah.
And then Nick Smith. Nick Smith, who's he might be the best bloke in the game. He's just a lovely guy, well mannered, well respected.
Yeah,
but he's not the flashiest player. Discipline and he's a gun. He's all Australian defender. Yeah, but that left foot kick across his body that just is like a hot knife through butter. It's like
threaded the needle. Unbelievable. Everyone's, and you're watching, and you're a bit further back, probably around, I think, the sort of 50-metre line as you start to see it coming out. But watching it, I was inside the 50, and it sort of just goes over your head, and you're slowly turning, and then as the realisation is, oh no, he's hit someone in the middle of the ground. We are in some strife here.
It's the only kick that can kickstart the game. And it goes to the bloke we probably least want with the ball.
Kicks probably well on both sides of the body.
Yep. He's good decision, and he makes the smart decision of, there's 12 seconds left, and he kicks a flat talk in the, so it's just going to slide.
Skid.
I don't know what you're like, but the the commentary in this game is so good in that. I don't know if it's technically good. I don't know enough about that, but it's like it's like my own sort of monologue that I had in my head while the game was going on. It's sort of hard to separate. Even Bomber Thompson's, it's a foot race. Like that's what we're
that is. Another Anthony Hudson panic, sort of classic.
Yeah.
Full
panic. Like, when that torp goes into the.
It's desperation sort of time, and like I said, with regard to those players that we had there, Woody's pickup at sort of full pelt with, I think it's Lloyd who's sort of chasing him down is amazing. And he almost manages to pick
on the way in,
closing in, and he manages to sort of pick it up with sort of one hand as he's rounding the ball, and then squeeze a little handball almost over his shoulder. So it almost goes against the natural. Exactly, it's a handball, but he manages to flick it around the corner virtually to JJ, who then sort of runs on, and I think he then just basically jams it into space where Boydie's sort of waiting and ran to support. And then, after that, clearly, Boydie, the siren goes, Boydie runs. So I think Matty Innes, who's our strength and conditioning coach, who's the runner at the time, and then your sort of head and body just pops through the bottom sort of right-hand corner of the screen. And from there, they're the moments. Like when you talk about why you play the game, it's on that sort of the final siren of a game like that just makes it all worth it in a way. And obviously you don't get that every week in terms of the style of game, but they're the, singing the song, but the moment of the siren sounding and embracing, your teammates is one of those things that just will sort of never disappoint, I think.
I was rewatching it, a couple of times over the last few days, and I'm watching like how fast, like Woody's back and the freakish sort of pickup, and I'm watching Boydie as well. I'm like, he is running on the spot. He is running on the spot. And I asked him, I said, I just texted him this morning. I said, hey, and seriously, because I have this sort of memory of I think he might have twinged his hamstring.
Yeah, okay.
In the minutes before, and so I text him, and he just texts me back literally right now.
I did. Oh, huge.
He goes, was that when Gary Rowan burnt me off and put about 15 metres on me in 3 strides? if so, hand me off the bone, and then a laughing emoji. But I actually think he did. He had tweaked his hamstring and just trying to shuffle around and get through.
In that game, sort of, everyone's a chance to, with the speed and the heaviness and what's going on. But clearly there was a bit of a discrepancy between the speed that sort of Woody and JJ were running at and Boydie just trying to tag along. But in the end, it didn't matter because he was there for the release and sort of socketed, I think. But what a game! Great game. Yeah.
Do you remember do you remember singing the song afterwards? Because
I do. That was a whole club set up.
Yeah,
that was a whole club. That was like, there was a feel at the time. Like sometimes you can sense it, not all the time in the moment, but I think that one when it was pretty much all the coaches, the players, that was a big moment for us. And clearly, how long prior was it that our last win had come against Sydney there? Like it was a fair while.
I want to say like 10 years.
So it was a long time.
It was a long time.
Yeah. And I think, at the time you probably don't appreciate the history or how long it's been. Like you're sort of like, it's just, we're here to play. We'll do what we can to win. But I think in the moment you got a feel for how special and big it was. And clearly what followed that, we had a reasonable season and played in the final against Adelaide, but it felt like there was a shift. Like in that moment, it was like, oh, okay, we can match them now, almost the best teams even on their turf a little bit. So there was an added bonus to that, sort of winning that game, obviously, as well.
Do you know what it might have been, Marcus? A revolution.
Well played.
A shift of power from one group to the next. Hey, that was really fun. Thanks for doing that.
Always is. Love
day
that.
we should
No
watch
worries.
the whole thing. Let's have a short break though, and when we come back, I've got a special guest, a young
Big guest. Big guest. Yep.
Aaron Naughton will be with us after the break. Welcome back to the 7th episode of the Western Bulldogs podcast, Berkeley Street. That's with the very schmicko hashtag Berkeley Street. Enjoyed that chat before, Bont, about the trip down memory lane against the Swans in 2015. But our next guest, he didn't give us stuff about that day in 2015 because he wasn't in a Bulldogs jumper at that stage. Aaron Naughton, welcome to Berkeley Street, man. How are you?
Yeah, going well, thank you. Cheers for having me.
Whereabouts are you?
I've ventured back to Melbourne now. Obviously, I spent most of the quarantine and isolation sort of time in WA, back home, moving back in with mum and dad, which is a bit strange, but obviously loved it. It was the most time I've spent with them since being drafted and moving away, so that was good. Not too much time or just the right amount with the fam? I think just the right amount of time. Milked it pretty hard with the dinners being cooked and not having to do washing. So, yeah, that side of things was lovely.
Were you back in the childhood bedroom? Or were you, like, I'm imagining a bunk bed?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Not quite. Not quite that extent. Just standard room. Not much has changed. Everything's basically the same. A little bit more tidy now. Obviously, mum and dad's been for a little bit.
Any posters on the wall?
There's a couple. They're all old, like Mark Skate, V8 Supercar ones, Bathurst.
Yeah,
I think Dad
you're a big Revhead.
And hung up in there.
Revhead.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's a big Revhead.
Not overly. My father's into the V8s a fair bit. He travels around. I've been to Bathurst as well, but a few of those old posters that he sort of handed down.
Could be something. Well, I am obviously because of our good friends at Mercedes-Benz Vans, mate. But there could be something in that we could work with Naughty and then try and tie something in from a Revhead point of view. But you talk about it a little bit, like you did say you went to Bathurst, which was a pretty cool experience, wasn't it, for you?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Obviously, I don't know anything about cars. Wouldn't want me trying to fix anything. But Bathurst was pretty cool. Obviously, it's like their grand final. So to be up there, camp on a week, up on the top of the mountain, was pretty cool experience. And to share that with Dad, who's been there, 20 odd years, like he's been going. So to be up there and spend the week with him was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I might change gears here because it was
nice.
I think, you like that? You like that? It's a bit subtle. So the other day was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday or the day before. Was a year to the day that the astronaut, let's say, arrived. Let's say he arrived.
Yeah.
It was takeoff, basically, or the opposite. It was takeoff. You left this.
Yeah.
You left Earth, and you basically moved into your own universe. Let's say. Yeah. Exactly. And there was the game against Richmond. You'd taken a number of contested marks. How many was it again? Memory evades me. What was it?
Oh, I'll have to get my notebook out. I think it was 9. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll have a tattoo of it soon, mate. I'm sure. But it was a great game. Like, I personally enjoyed being a part of it because, Bob, sort of you potentially be the same with when there's games that come about where particularly young players they have those games, and you clearly were playing forward at the time. You'd shifted from the back line, which had started with us initially, and the move to go forward had come, and you dominated. You'd obviously had a massive influence from an in the air marking point of view. You'd kicked a number of goals, but it was sort of a game, and everyone, I think, as a young player, remembers that sort of game. They feel like maybe you belong, or you feel like you've sort of arrived to the game and feel comfortable. Tell Bobby and I and the people listening a bit about sort of how you felt during the game and what was sort of running through your head as maybe it was happening.
Yeah, obviously it was still pretty early in my stint, sort of being swung forward. Round 1 was good to be able to play all right, and then from there, was doing okay, but probably the couple of weeks before the Richmond game, I was probably not having the impact that I would have liked. And to sort of come out in that game, and I sort of got a couple early marks up on the lead, and in that first quarter, and sort of felt, yeah, this could be an all right day. And then obviously you boys in the midfield started dominating and kicking the ball down. And yeah, obviously it was one of those games, my best one so far, where it was nice to sort of have that impact, and sort of, yeah, from there knowing that, yeah, I am capable of performing at the highest level.
Yep. And you're sort of, it looked like you're clearly playing with a fair bit of confidence, as you said. At that point, it's sort of the best comparison you can sort of put it down to is that, like, you know, when shooters in basketball get a hot hand, they feel like, you know, that they can sort of sink everything. You look like your timing, you're obviously a great jumper at the ball, but yeah, particularly your timing was just spot on. Did you just feel like that was something that naturally was just coming to you, the ball that came in? You were sort of jumping at times from 2 or 3 deep and just clunking them. It looked like you were playing with a great deal of confidence. Yeah,
also I think as well, it was just that freedom in that game. Didn't have to think about much. Everything was just clicking. As us as players, we'll have those games where everything's falling right, and yeah, but for all means, yeah, it was just being able to jump at the footy, all freedom in the world to sort of play how I wanted. Wasn't overcomplicating things that easy. So I think that's why I play my best footy.
Hey, Aaron, can I jump in? I'm curious. I think people still kind of underestimate how hard it is for a young player like yourself to sort of start your career as a key defender and then quickly be thrown forward. And you know, there's been some games where it hasn't quite worked out for you, but clearly the trajectory is that, you know, you're one of the most exciting young key forwards in the game. Can you kind of explore just how much work and how much coaching has gone in for that transition?
Yeah, obviously I played all my juniors as a defender, so and then obviously my first season, and then getting swung forward, it was a bit of a shock. Sort of took it with open arms, but yeah, obviously besides playing on forwards in my first year and in my junior career, yeah, I had no idea of what to do. Obviously marking's my main strength and a big part of playing forward, but in terms of that, working really closely with Jamie Maddox, my development coach, and Ash Hanson, the forward line coach. Those two were really good in just sort of keeping it really simple. They didn't want to overcomplicate things and just sort of take a few little key areas at the start of the season. Once I sort of become natural and become pretty common traits to my game, sort of explore a bit deeper and to more complex things as a forward. But yeah, obviously to learn, and that's probably the most exciting thing about it.
Never played forward as a junior?
There's never been a full game. One of our junior coaches, Craig Otto, he used to swim me down there for a quarter or two. But yeah, literally, I've never started and finished a game up forward. So yeah, mainly a defender.
Are you one of those defenders that wanted to be a forward? Because that's a bit of a common trait amongst a lot of them. They're frustrated forwards.
Yeah, I can probably say that now because I'm on the other side of the fence. But no, actually, I enjoyed being a defender. I was probably more of a sturdy defender and didn't pay too much attention to the forward. Sort of tried to win my own footy. So yeah,
that's correct. That is correct. That is how you started with us, mate. And I just realised there is some symmetry here. That Bob, you also defence into forward for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, there was not the 9 contested mark kind of.
I was going to ask, how many in one game had you taken? Did you get close?
No. I probably didn't get 9 in the season. Don't penalise because I was quick enough to get away from him. See, Aaron's not. He gets to jump on top of him because he can't. He's not.
Yeah,
kill. So, geez, you know.
Yeah, okay. Just curious. Jeez, have to get your neck up.
Give me a bit of slack.
That's it. And obviously, I'm just curious. Sorry, mate. It's obviously now. I mean, typically today that you blokes, I guess, are called like sort of swing men. You can play sort of both positions, but it seems like you've sort of settled more into the forward sort of position as your main position. What do you feel like you need to continue to sort of develop in your game from a playing perspective? Clearly, the marking and the you're pretty accurate set shot of goal too is helping. What are the things you feel like you can continue to grow on as a player?
Yeah, I think the big one's just going to be time for myself. Obviously, still pretty new to it is the main one, but I think it's more just as in the AFL, it's probably just those running patterns and timing of leads and sort of working out what defenders don't like. I obviously know the way that I like to play and sort of combating them against, different defences, whether that be assertive or back shoulder. Those sort of little things where, changes pretty slightly from team to team that you play. So all those little things. But I think the big one's just going to be time, really. Like there hasn't been, obviously haven't played one season down there, and there's probably going to be many more. So just looking forward to over the years getting a bit better.
I've got one real quick one. So far with your experience as a forward, hardest defender that you've, or maybe a defender you've learnt the most off of? I sort of remember as a player, you sort of remember a game where you get not taught your first lesson, but you realise, okay, like I've got a bit of work to do here. Who was that for you, early stages?
Probably the first one would have been Robbie Tarrant. Obviously, I reckon he's pretty underrated in the AFL. I reckon
good defender.
Just the sheer size and strength of him, but then he's also got the tank and speed aspect of it as well. So he was one that physically matched up against me probably a lot better. I couldn't really beat him in any area at this stage. And probably another one, bit different, but we played Carlton pretty early, and Liam Jones played on me and played pretty well against me. That was probably the first time that I ever experienced like a real one-on-one, didn't want the footy sort of. His job was to stop you, which was, that shocked me a little bit. So that was probably the first time I experienced that. Was a bit of a change.
Yeah. But did y'all hear that in the background? Must apologise. Yeah, I think someone might have been getting a clip, and it might have been Maya, I reckon. So I should update you. We've got, after, picking up Maya a couple of weeks ago, I should announce there is another pup in the Bontempelli household. My sister Sienna. No. Yeah, I know. So she's been on the lookout for a cavoodle pup too, which is what my family dog was. And we welcomed her into the household on Sunday night. So last night was horrendous. It was an absolute racket because we've got little cavoodle Nala. She's crying. She woke up Maya. Then Maya's scratching. It's I'm well and truly in the thick of it, in the deep end at the minute, but trying our best.
Dog tail. Yeah, another version of dog tail. Hey, Naughty, we like to, when we get our guests on every week, we just play this little segment. It's just called Group Hug. And so it's just where Marcus will ask you a question, then I'll ask you a question. We just put our virtual arms around you, mate. A bit of love for you. We probably only got a
crowded house.
Yeah, definitely.
Have we lost Bob?
I think we have.
Is he stuck? Well, the show must go on. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
So basically, when he comes back to us, hopefully that happens. But the group hug, the base gist behind that is we ask you a couple of questions as he was explaining it. I'll obviously start off because Bob's frozen at the minute. But anyway, I'm keen. Clearly this sort of isolation sort of period. You've been back home, obviously, maybe getting in touch with a few different things. Oh, he's back now. Bobo, we lost you for a second, mate. Sorry.
I was just a bit bored by you two, but I just had to
really?
make myself a cup of coffee. Sorry.
I thought you were being kicked from the conversation. I was like, there's been some strings pulled. Yeah. They're kicking
or something.
Yeah, I thought I'd been outed. I'd been boned.
So group hug, we heard that part. Couple questions just to bring it in. nice and tight. I just wanted to start off. Naughty, you got a couple of interests outside the game that, you like to do, especially when you go back home. There's probably a couple that you like to sort of get in touch with. What sort of helps you sort of keep busy and keep the balance in your life outside of footy, man?
So obviously back home in WA, I got a little fishing boat back there, which is nice. Obviously, where I'm from, Rockingham, it's just a smaller sort of coastal town.
Rockingham.
South. Yeah, great place.
Rockingham.
Speaking actually, the ball has been there a couple of times to play for the local club back in the heyday. Yeah, they ventured down, but so obviously back there, just sort of being out in the water. There's pretty good cray fishing and a bit of fishing back there. So that's probably the main one, which was really nice, sort of, especially over the last sort of 5-6 weeks where I was back home, to be able to use the boat a fair bit. Lucky enough with the WA restrictions that you were still allowed to go out fishing, which was nice. And sort of just the outdoors sort of thing, sort of grown up. Didn't travel overseas as a family. We sort of, did the Australian route and travelled around and up north, camping on the beach, fishing, forward driving. So those types of things are probably, the main ones there, bring a bit of enjoyment outside of footy.
Sounds like you got it pretty good, eh? Sounds pretty good, eh, over there? That's good, eh? Can I ask on the fishing? What's your single greatest fishing moment?
Yeah. Ooh. I haven't actually caught too many big sort of sports fish. Obviously, greatest moment was probably, it sort of struck my interest in it, was on one of our trips to Coral Bay in WA, which is about halfway to the top, but it's still about a 13-hour drive, so a bit of a trek. When I was about 10 or 11, we went on a fishing charter up there, and fishing 100 meters deep of water on big hand reels, although getting seasick and spewing up the whole time, to be able to catch some pretty big fish there was probably the one thing that struck my interest.
Sounds like the worst day of my life.
Well, the excitement besides feeling,
but you're
you missed the question.
No, that's been the one.
You're pretty
obviously
protected, Murphy. You're pretty protected. You wouldn't cope well.
I just haven't got good sea legs.
I
just haven't got good sea legs, mate.
And then probably a little other one was in the last off season. I ventured up to Shark Bay, which doesn't sound too friendly, but just before Coral Bay it is, and spent a week up there camping and spear fishing with a mate. So that's probably one trip that really enjoyed, and obviously being able to catch some decent fish up there as well.
Righto, Marcus, you finish him off his last question, and we'll let him off the hook.
Righto. Yeah. Oh, bang! Beautiful. I'm curious. So you're still living with Timmy and Timmy English and Paddy. That's been going for a little bit. How's the dynamic been, since moving in with them? Who does what? Who doesn't do what? You've been enjoying it though?
Yeah. Obviously, what's it been now? Probably 18 months. We moved in just at the end of the season in my first year. So it's been a while. It's working pretty well. Obviously, Timmy was out by himself before that. I was at a hostie. Paddy was with his family. But like I say, Paddy's come leaps and bounds, obviously, since moving out. In terms of the cooking and cleaning, and there's been a few little stories with him where me and Timmy are just shaking our head going, what are you on about? But no,
come on, mate,
it's always been really good. Yeah, it's the old boy from Eltham, your area. Don't know what sort of goes out there, but you're not.
He's a bit further. He's a bit further though. Like I'm not. Yeah, I'm in a different part of Eltham. Where we're a bit more independent. We learn. I think obviously a little bit more on the fly.
Yeah, I thought that'd be the case.
Hey, Naughty, thanks for giving us a bit of time today, mate. It's great to see your smiling face. Nice to know you're back in town. Hopefully, a bit of footy's not too far away. You're always welcome at Berkeley Street, mate. Let's aim for 11 contested marks in round 2, and that would take you to the that'd take you over the Duck, and then you will be number 1 in terms of the contested marking. But it was great to go down memory lane with you, and good luck for the rest of the year.
No worries. Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good boy. Thanks, big dog. Good boy.
Nice one, eh?
Cheers.